When your brother dies and you learn he appointed you his next of kin, do not even dream of dying. When the police come looking for you and you are off in another land, learning how to write this poem, do not forget to eat. When you lay him to rest and you remember the twists he wanted in his hair, do not go without touching his cold body. When one of his daughters prays on this cold body and another reads a psalm, do smile for him. When you dream of dying and believe you cannot withstand the storm this time, remember his children in the stories of their father. Do let them know of all the magic he left behind. When no one remembers your breaking, when they forget to ask you how you're feeling, cry anyway. Grieve anyway. Do let yourself crumble and wither in pain anyway. But do not let the water boil over and ruin your hot chocolate. Okay. So, it took me a long time to get here, in front of the camera specifically. I'm exhausted. I'm very exhausted, and I'm struggling with a few different things that have been placating my mind. However, they've been things that have been bothering me for a very long time in general. I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to sit in front of a camera and tell my story and highlight my artistry, highlight my beauty services and my relationship with beauty, my relationship with chronic illness, my relationship with neurodivergency, my Nigerian heritage, all of these things. But I'm scared. And I don't know why, because I've done this before. I've done this without the glamour. I've done this without thinking twice about it. I've done this in the hospital, in school, performed, all of these things, but now it feels different. And ever since my brother passed away, life has just been different. And the first months, maybe around 6 months, I was on a ball, I was on a roll. This opportunity, this job, this art show, this. And I feel so depleted now. Realistically, my health hasn't been a-okay since October. But January of this year, mind you, it's 1:40 a.m. right now. January of this year really shocked me, having to be back in the hospital. Even if the focal point wasn't a sickle cell crisis, yes, there was sickle cell pain attached to the hospitalization, but I haven't been hospitalized for anything major or admitted. I'll say that because I was in the hospital last year right before. I was in the ER last year right before my brother passed away, days before he passed away, actually. Or at least when the police were looking for me to tell me, and I was in grad school. And it was right after my residency started. It's like my timeline is like everything happened, and then June. And now I'm in March. And even saying I'm in March is so bewildering to me because time doesn't feel real. And I'm realizing how much I've been on autopilot this whole time. I'm realizing how much I haven't been doing for myself in general. And I'm used to that. I'm used to self-sacrificing. I'm used to not putting myself first. I'm used to being a doormat. And I don't want that anymore. And I thought I was doing so great when he passed. But the last time I was admitted, I want to get that point out of there, into a hospital. It's like 2023, I believe. And I look good now. I don't feel good. Yesterday I was crying most of the day, and I had to. Something that I have been processing is like having to reintroduce myself to people that didn't know me before June 2024, and reintroducing myself to people that did know me before that time or around that time, and then my brother passed. And it's like I've been trying to avoid and trying to navigate and trying to fight. Hi, my name is Ayola. My brother died. When he passed away, I told myself not to hide my grief. I'm so used to hiding so many things. I'm so used to hiding my pain. I'm so used to hiding my trauma. I'm so used to hiding hospitalizations, my tears. I'm a silent crier unless I'm comfortable or in a space where I can actually bawl. And that's another thing I am transparent about. That crying isn't always conducive for me as much as I need to, and I don't fight crying per se, but that is just something that exerts so much energy in my body that in the past I've had sickle cell pain from crying. And my emotional capacity has grown, but at the same time, it hasn't. I realized how much this past hospitalization and experiences around the hospitalization made me regress, but not just regress technically, made me realize how much I'm still battling internally and how much I'm still navigating. I didn't want to take off my makeup because I really wanted to record this video, because I wanted to tell myself like I can finally do it. And it's been a lot of that. It's been a lot of just try, instead of just do. And that's hard for me as well, not just with the physical pain, but the mental and emotional anguish. My brother's death for me is very nuanced. And I take a lot of responsibility for my own emotions, especially as I get older. No one has control over me. No one has control over my emotions except myself. Of course, I'm human. Things are triggering, and people intentionally try to poke at you, whatever. But with my brother's passing, it was like
it's still something I'm trying to accept, because like I said, I've been on autopilot, and just coming back into my body now, and it still feels like the week of the funeral. It still feels like same day that I got the call from my eldest brother. It still feels like the planning, the having to tell people, the calling, having to email professors, having to email schools, trying to get more accommodations. Still feels like that. It still feels like I'm struggling immensely. And I am. And I'm realizing I still don't fully know how to ask for help, but not just that, I don't know what I need. So I don't even know what to ask for. And it's hard navigating that when so many people tell you, whether they have good intentions or not, tell me what you need. That is not fair for someone that is in grief, someone that's in crisis. And that is something also I'm coming to a contention with in terms of my advocacy and everything. I really demand more from people, not just my own personal expectations, but I don't really like excuses anymore, not just for myself, but for other people, in terms of sickle cell advocacy, sickle cell awareness, mental health, understanding. It hasn't been a year since he passed, and there's been so much good. There's been so many blessings. There's been so many opportunities. There's been so many connections, new friends, newness. But it doesn't feel new at all. It doesn't feel new at all. It doesn't feel like a huge transition. Of course it is. One of my friends actually told me when I contacted her, she was one of the first people I contacted, she was telling me that I'm going to have to relearn who I am not having two brothers. And at that time, I really sat with that, like what she said, but it holds true more and more now. A lot of people like to disrespect me and use different things to do that. And the older I get, the calmer or less reactionary I am, but I am more assertive, or less about letting things go and more about, hey, this is not okay. I have a big problem with when I am in crisis, when I am having a traumatic moment, when, like, how my trauma is treated by the people around me in general. And that is also why it's so hard for me to navigate my emotions, because I'm always being put in the position to be there and be okay for other people. That was something that was very hard when my brother first passed. Family members in Nigeria, and oh yes, that's something that I actually want to discuss in a series with my new platform and everything. It's not okay to tell someone to be strong in loss. And I understand that's part of our culture, and I was being told be strong for mommy and daddy and all of these things. And people don't understand context. People don't know what happens, right? Not everybody knows what's happening in family, all of these things, but I think I took that to heart, and I thought I wasn't. Because the first months, I really think it's a 6-month timeline of like me being okay. I was crying. I was numb. I didn't know the difference between 3 days and 3 weeks. Health wasn't the best, really, either. But I was trying to be on top of myself about navigating the grief, and it was very weird. It was very weird. I had to move for grad school. I was alone, but also trusting people with my emotions is so difficult because I'm very vulnerable. I'm a very vulnerable person. I can be very transparent because that is what moves change, and that is what also opens up connection. And that's integral to my morality in terms of a person living with sickle cell. Because there's so much that happens in the sickle cell community that is not only glossed over, but intentionally hidden. Another thing I want to finally be open and honest about. And I want to be able to do this, be in front of a camera, be in front of this for my YouTube channel, for my art, for everything, like actually be able to jump back into my artistry and stop being everything for everyone. Like, I want to take a step back from my advocacy work outside of my business. I want to take a step back from traveling for work so much, volunteering work, advocacy, all of those things. I want to be able to not look at my phone for like days and the world doesn't end. I know I'm talking about a lot of different things, but that's literally how my mind works and how I process things. I don't like how people talk to me, and I also don't like the stigma of feeling like I complain too much, and that's why I'm silent. And that navigating that silence within my poetry, my disease, my culture, all of those things. And I really am tired. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted of feeling alone. I'm exhausted of tiptoeing around who I can navigate my grief with, because nobody wants, as someone living with sickle cell, we understand nobody wants to hear about your pain for long. People are very uncomfortable and, matter of fact, disgusted in you for being in the hospital, disgusted for you being depressed, disgusted and tired of you not being 1000% for them. And I have people I can go to, but at the same time, I don't, because this grief is different. With my grandma passing in 2019, it feels very similar in the level of I'm at a new stage. I transferred schools in 2019. It was the beginning of the semester. Moved to another place as well alone. If you see a pattern. But this feels different because I can't talk. Everybody has, not everyone, but there's a certain understanding of your grandma passing. The losing of a sibling, especially a sibling that also shared so much with you, very difficult. The first few months of his passing, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror because I look so much like him. And I'm grateful for the counseling resources I have, but I do need specific bereavement counseling and support for losing a sibling, especially in the chronic disease space. And I'm very privy to losing friends. I got used to it the older I got used to it. I lose friendships specifically every time I'm in the hospital. That has been a theme, that has been a reoccurring thing since I was a child, to the point where I navigate talking about my hospitalizations, and like I said earlier, I don't have often hospitalizations anymore, but the hospital is very lonely. And people know that because they don't want to visit you. They don't want to talk to you while you're in the hospital. They don't want to continue to date you. They don't want to do anything until you get out the hospital. And even then, I've had people insult me about my choices or what I do when I get out the hospital that didn't talk to me or didn't show up for me or did not come to visit me while I was in the hospital. And so many things were said between me and my brother before he passed. Many of them I just always remember, but also his death gave me a newfound purpose that I think I have to really reconsider right now, because when it first passed, I thought I was being there for myself, and I haven't been. I've been doing everything for everyone, trying to be there for everyone, and not really sitting with the fullness of my emotions. It's still very fresh. It hasn't been a year. But that doesn't mean it's going to be easier as time goes by. There could be anything that triggers me in the future, etc., etc. But I don't need to intellectualize my emotions. I don't need to what's that word? Put them in files, like SpongeBob. I don't need to do that. There's so much I want to say, but I'm so happy that I could get this out. I think the real problem I have is the disregard for sickle cell. And again, that's going to be a series. Let's hope that I can get that out as well. The disregard for sickle cell is really like ingrained culturally. And it's something that not only different patients and warriors talk about, individuals living with sickle cell talk about, but it's also something that the older I get, I'm able to put actual words to what I'm witnessing. Because we all have social contracts. Some of them different culturally, some of them very misunderstood, some of them are traditions that no one knows the beginning of, right? But there's a it's a social contract not to disrespect cancer. It's a social contract to show up for people that have cancer. It's a social contract to be very gentle and delicate with cancer patients. And someone might get angry or whatever about the comparison of sickle cell and cancer, but that is actually, they're actually on the same playing field. Like, and studies have been shown that cancer patients and sickle cell patients go through the same pain. However, sickle cell patients have worse and adverse debilitating daily pain and worse, not necessarily, okay. The life of someone living with sickle cell, statistically, like studies have been shown of this, it's not being taken care of, it's not being prioritized, it's not being cared for, it's not being considered at the same level as cancer, even though they are at the same playing field as chronic illnesses. And the thing about cancer, and I can say this because I've had friends with cancer from camp growing up that have said the same thing, that they don't understand why sickle cell is being treated the way it is. We know why. We all know why. Sickle cell is a global disease, and yet because it has been framed as a Black disorder, it's been able to be marginalized further. So the people that are not Black, not of African descent, also don't get resources, also don't get funding, also don't get considered in studies that need to be approved by the FDA. I'm laughing because I'm angry, actually. Another part of the disrespect towards me and my health is the innate ableism I face. And ableism shows in different ways, and ableism has levels. But one of them I face is people sending me online, people, not just online, but people sending me articles, posts about a sickle cell cure. And it's the way that it's done. One time it happened like multiple times a day for days, and it just triggered me to the point that I had to make a post about it on my main page. I've sat more with my understanding of it, and what pisses me off is it's not that I'm not happy about the interest in sickle cell. There needs to be an interest in sickle cell because Nigeria is the center of the most births and population of sickle cell births. African Americans, 1 in 13, 1 in 12, 13, the statistic is kind of like changed throughout the years, but 1 in 13 African Americans have sickle cell trait. I believe it's 1 in 365 Hispanic and Latino populations that have sickle cell trait as well.
So, correction here. It's actually 1 in 365 Black American births that have sickle cell disease. I can't remember the statistic for Latino and Hispanic sickle cell trait populations. There's a difference between trait and disease, but 1 in 16,300 births within Latino and Hispanic populations will result in sickle cell disease. So yeah.
And we're not even going in statistics in the Mediterranean, in the Middle East, in the subcontinent of India, for instance. People that send me things about sickle cell and that are not in community with me, and I mean that specifically as in you care enough about me to talk to me like a person. You care enough about me to talk to me anything but sickle cell. Just asking me how I am, how school, whatever. Just looking at me outside of this is a sick girl. And I've written poetry about that because how I was treated in high school was abysmal, was disgusting. Even though I kept on putting my high school on the map because of my sickle cell advocacy. There's no reason why you should send someone something and not talk to them. The reason why, and I'm going to break this down, this is ableist is because you're not actually integrating any education, any interest in sickle cell. You are just seeing a post and thinking of the one person you can think of that has sickle cell. And I come up and you don't have a conversation with me. You just send me something No context. No, what do you think of this? Are you able to get this? How are you? Have you seen this? Just sent it to me. No context. My problem is, these are people that want to work in the medical field, that want to work in public health, social workers, nurses, doctors, in trainings. We talk about this in the sickle cell community, that y'all don't know anything. I have SC type. There's a hierarchy system in the sickle cell community. Because I have SC type, they refuse to do funding. They refuse to do specific studies on SC type compared to SS and beta thal. Quick educational message. There are numerous types of sickle cell genotypes. What is a genotype? Do that research on your own. There are numerous types of genotypes in the sickle cell populace. In fact, sickle cell is an umbrella term. There's sickle cell trait, there's sickle cell hemoglobin SS, there's hemoglobin SC. Hemoglobin is a red blood cell protein. If you have an abnormal hemoglobin, meaning anything that is a variation of, that is not a variation of A, anything that is not A hemoglobin is abnormal. The reason why is because it changes the shape of the cell, but it also limits how much oxygen the cell can carry. So those with genotype SS medically have more adverse symptoms. However, sickle cell is not a one-size-fits-all disease, to quote my father. Sickle cell is not a one-size-fits-all disease, right? Everyone that has sickle cell does not have the same experience. Another fun fact, not everybody that has sickle cell pain. Some people have their first stroke at 8 years old. Some people have organ damage in their 20s. Some people have to get their hip replaced after they give birth. Shoulder surgery during pregnancy. Issues with infertility, blindness.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to find healing through artistic mediums.
To keep up with us at Healing Through Artistic Mediums LLC, go to our website, hersilencespeaks.com. Follow us on Instagram at artby_io, AYO, and subscribe to our Patreon and YouTube channels at a.o.catharsis.